Happy New Year, beautiful people. Today, I want to talk to you guys about why people who are healing can often be mislabeled as being quote unquote mean. Over the past few weeks, I've noticed how often women will start questioning themselves right at the moment that they stop their over functioning. Like, right at the moment that they set a boundary, right at the moment that they stop smoothing things over for, like, everybody else's comfort, and basically right at the moment that they choose themselves and choose not to explain themselves, and instead of recognizing this pattern as growth, they can often pull back and think something's wrong with them. Somewhere along the way, a lot of us are taught that being nice means being endlessly flexible for people, and that it means always accommodating other people, and we learn that love, like love for women, means absorbing everyone else's discomfort while being quiet so that they're comfortable even if we are uncomfortable. And honestly, for a while, that can probably help us in those unhealthy spaces because everyone else is agreeing to this unhealthy pattern of self-silencing and betraying themselves to keep the peace for other people, to keep everybody else comfortable. Um, and to keep the relationships intact and to keep you feeling like you have some sort of community and that you were chosen and that you were picked. And that works until it doesn't work. Yeah. And that's usually when somebody, probably you, since you're the one watching this video, realizes that you are tired of showing up in that way, um, attempting to sanction yourself so that you can fix other people. You find yourself becoming impatient, um, and noticing that you are resentful when you used to feel like the same thing was something you could apply grace to, something that you could understand. Now you don't understand anymore. You tired. And you probably started setting and upholding some boundaries, and the people around you have said that you changed, um, because you have, right? And even with that pushback, you finally started feeling like yourself. So, if you've ever found yourself thinking, "Why does it feel, less, tolerant? Like, why can I not tolerate this stuff anymore when I used to be able to? Why am I no longer interested in explaining myself to people? Why don't I wanna be around these people? Why is protecting my energy feeling so uncomfortable to all these people around me? Why does choosing my peace suddenly get labeled as an attitude to people?" Then this video is for you. Let's talk about when your self-respect, I said it, when your self-respect kicks in. And from the outside, it can look like you are being mean. Amen. If you are new here, hello everybody and happy new year. My name is Rushni Cope, aka Glamazini out here on Glamazini's internet. I am a certified life coach and a content creator who helps Black women heal, amplify their gifts, and create lives that love them back. I am live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on all platforms, and like the video if you are into weekly videos about healing and creating lives that you love. Hello, S. Oliver. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you. Hi, you guys. I feel like I haven't been out here in a while because I haven't been out here in a while. Okay. Your girl had her work sabbatical. I try to do it twice a year. And usually I announce to you guys that I'm going to do my work sabbatical, which happens right after I host the planning retreat. And this year I didn't announce Jack Squad. Okay. I just talked out. Your girl went away. I didn't go anywhere, but I just stopped the things. So the first week of the holidays was a lot of nothingness, and then people started getting sick. If you live in the United States of America, chances are you or someone you know has been struck with the plague, and uh, we are not any different. Uh, First, my husband was struck with the plague, and then I subsequently got a little sniffle-diffle, although not as bad as the other people in his family. They had the plague, and then now my son is coming out of it. So we all are dealing with some of the remnants, and it's a long lingering thing. And so you haven't seen your girl because your girl has just been back here trying to rest and survive, okay? Trying to clear her nasal passages. Amen. Hello, Michonne Redmond 9884. All right, so today I want to talk to you guys. Oh, before I go on, also, the next cohort of the Create Your Life virtual planning retreat starts on June 5th. The wait list is currently open and enrollment will begin hopefully later today when I open it up. Okay, your girl is moving at a pace. So hopefully today. If you go to the link on the screen, bit.ly/virtual planning retreat, it's also in the information box of the video. You can join the wait list, and I will be sending the wait list a coupon code for when enrollment opens. So if you don't want to pay the full price, the way to do so is to be on the wait list ASAPtually because I don't know if I'm going to send it more than once. I might if I feel like it. Okay. Also, December cohort ladies, hello and happy new year, boo boos. We kick off with our first virtual co working session this Sunday, right? I sent an email already with all the information, followed by our first accountability call the following Sunday. So you are getting an email you already have, and I'll probably send a reminder email with information to join those calls. Amen. Amen. Okay. Now let's talk about why people who benefited from your wounds think you're mean now. Okay. Healing makes you mean. And it's not because you have all of a sudden become a horrible person, although that's what people who benefit from you being wounded will try to make you think. It's because you have become an honest, authentic, integrated, and mature person. That's what's happening. The irony of being a wounded person is we will often encounter people in our lives who we consider to be rigid and mean. And then as we heal, we realize that person was onto something and we were the wounded ones. That's what's happening to you right now. The matter of the truth is Black women, well, women, but Black women especially, we are taught to give ourselves away. We give ourselves away. Yeah. We are taught that self sacrifice is the highest form of showing up for other people. We are taught that what is valuable for us as a being and a doing, okay, is the roles that we play and fulfill in other people's lives. The role you play in your man's life, the role you play in your child's life, the role you play in your church's life, the role you play on your job. Everybody, everybody except you, right? It's always about sacrificing but not promoting the self, always. We all know, or we are Black women who have checked every single box that we have been given to check and done all the things that we've been told to do. And yet, we or she does not know who she is beyond the roles that she plays in another person's life. You will talk to a 30-year-old. She'll be in her 40s, her 50s, her 60s, girl, even her 70s and beyond, honestly. And if you ask this woman who she is, she will proudly or exhaustedly respond to you that she is somebody's mom, she's so and so's sister, she's this and that person's mother, she's a deacon at the church, she's in this organization and that organization, or someone of her, she's a host of this podcast online situation. Which one of her degrees she'll lay out for you, and she probably earned it from boredom or from checking the boxes to prove her worth. I'm not saying all of it, but I'm saying a lot of it happens that way. And because We are told that that is the way we are going to find contentment and satisfaction in life. We all do it. We all do it. And we believe that that is how we show up to love other people, but it's always other people. It's not ourselves, mind you. Matter of fact, self love is often demonized in a lot of the spaces that Black women frequent, if you think about it. It's twisted in our minds that if you love yourself, you are performing some negative thing. And you have to flip that feeling that you would give to self and give it to other people. Now, the Bible I be reading, Jesus say you gotta love others as you love yourself, which means the prerequisite. Come on, did you see how that word tried to take me out? Hydration. I had retired these cups because I was trying to not drink out of plastic, but look how cute it looks on camera, you guys. I had to bring it back, at least for when I'm filming. Okay. The prerequisite is self-love, so you can love others like you love yourself. Anyway, but because things are misread, and for whatever reasons the system has, self-love is demonized in a lot of the spaces that we frequent. So we make our relationships and our families and our churches and the entirety of other people and roles we play our entire personality. And we sacrifice ourselves and we experience a stunted relationship with the self. So you're an adult on the outside, but you don't know who you are. A lot of us are unhappy. And if you are, that's fine because that's just sacrificial love. You know what I mean? Like we just, somebody tells us how to frame our unhappiness, wrap it up in the sacrificial love bow, and we can run on, right? A lot of people lack joy. And if they do, that's fine because it's sacrificial love. Yeah. A lot of people are exhausted. We're exhausted. The pace at which we are told to keep giving and giving and giving and giving and showing up is fine, and it's not sustainable, but that's just sacrificial love, right? A lot of us are neglected, but if the other person feels seen, heard, and valued, not you, that's great because we're told that that's how it's supposed to be. So we show up and we serve, and we show up and we serve, and we do what we think love is, not to ourselves, but to other people, which is honorable. I'm not gonna say that's not an honorable way to show up, you guys. At least, or at most. I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. I'm saying without you inside of that thing, you become a tool and not a person, right? You become a doing and not a being. After making everybody else okay, comfortable, making sure everybody else is straight, we are not satisfied if you are honest. A lot of women do that for years and years in their life. I've done it. And we end up feeling lost, detached, and boom, all of a sudden we get sick. And we just can't figure out what happened. You know how many times I have talked to women who self-sacrifice beautifully. I mean, they are executing this message perfectly. And then in another conversation, they'll be like, I don't know. I just feel detached and this and that and other. And they don't put it okay. Also, this sort of detachment from the self makes us sick, mentally sick, physically sick, and if there's such a thing, spiritually sick, which I'm sure there is, right? Let's talk about some facts. I've shared this with you guys before, but I'm going to share it every time I can. Autoimmune diseases are increased in people who self-silence. There are studies, I think the video I did was called Your Silence is Killing You, where I referenced the studies that show that self-silencing in women increased their chances of suffering from autoimmune diseases and also cardiac diseases. Yeah. Women are more likely to take on caregiving roles, like me. I'm a caregiver to a son with special needs, but we will take on caregiving giving roles to our children, whether they are typically developing or not. We will take on caregiving roles to our spouse. We will take on caregiving roles to our siblings and our friends. We will take on caregiving roles to our parents and our grandparents, and often more than one of those people at the same time. But taking on caregiving roles is unpaid emotional, physical labor, and logistical labor for decades. I recently had to price out what it would cost to pay a someone to do what I do for my son as his caregiver, not as his mom, right? I started with asking his pediatrician who she would recommend, like what level of human would she recommend that I price out? And she basically told me, I forgot exactly, but like a nurse, like I'm a nurse. Okay, not like no low-level caregiver. We need somebody with medical experience and not like even the low-level one, like the higher. So I call around and I would be making bank if I was doing what I do for my son as a job, but we are not paid money. And oftentimes we are not even acknowledged when giving the caregiving. Chronic stress is a major contributor to things like hypertension, type 2 diabetes, conditions that disproportionately affect women as they age, and even more so affect Black women, which is the majority of my audience. Women tend to report high stress and high caregiving stress. And clearly these things and just the stress of living in a crappy misogynistic patriarchal society that is flaring up like crazy lately because some people feel like the antidote to progression is regression. And so now we have to deal with the death throes pains of misogyny and patriarchy beckoning us back to things that our ancestors fought to get us the hell up out of, and that increases our cortisol levels, and increased cortisol levels contribute to things like inflammation and greater risk of metabolic diseases, right? Why are you telling me this, Rashni? Gosh, this is depressing. I'm just saying that everyone thinks you're nice and they're benefiting from you breaking off pieces of yourself and shrinking yourself and self-silencing and self-sacrificing and overperforming and performing emotional labor and all of that. And these behaviors that many of us were taught to do were modeled by women who came before us to survive these systems, and we are praised if we do them, are often clear taking us all the way out, you know? And that's one of the things that I'm here to share, okay? That's one of my life work. To just let y'all know that sometimes when you follow the conveyor belt goes where the people before you went. Disillusioned, exhaustion, physical and mental disease, and dissatisfaction with the life that you created. And I'm sorry about that. However, the audience that I'm talking to tends to know this in full or in part, okay? Um, it's not brand new news to most of us because we are all on healing journeys. Most of us know stuff like this already. We are not who we used to be. But we're not who we're becoming entirely yet, or should I say creating. We are healing ing ing with the ing, meaning it's a process that occurs over time as we learn and implement things. And the moment that you stop bleeding quietly on the inside for other people's comfort, their story about you will change. And that's what I'm here to say. When you begin to heal, you stop offering yourself in pieces. You come together and become whole. You integrate and show up more authentically. You're not operating from shame, hiding, contorting to belong, quote unquote. You stop making your body and your mind and your spirit a buffer between other people and their discomfort, and you just let it be. You take your hands off of trying to externally control other people's outcomes so you can distract yourself from doing your own work. You let other people reap what they sow so that you can tend to your own garden. You stop cushioning the impact of truth and authenticity so that somebody who will not do their own emotional labor doesn't have to feel it. And you allow adults to regulate themselves and no longer take responsibility for their chosen responses. And because so many people might have been benefiting from who you were when you were overextending yourself and overgiving yourself and under-resourced, and honestly, brace yourself, because this one was hard for me to realize, but it's true. When you lacked self-respect, mm, your healing won't register as neutral to those people when you begin to change. It will register as a loss, yeah? It will register as a loss of having access to you. Right? They'll know that they don't have access to you to perform a bunch of labor that is not yours. They are around you because they don't want to do it and you have been willing to do it. So they saddle up and they throw it up on your back and you happily take it. They feel like they're losing that because technically they are. It will register as a loss of convenience for them because they don't have to do it, right? You're in the world looking for other people's stuff to deal with, and they're in the world looking to hand their stuff to other people. It'll register as a loss of comfort. Right? One of the things that I see on the internet a lot, especially when it comes to race conversations and gender conversations, but this goes with anyone, is telling people to sit in their discomfort, right? A lot of people are evading discomfort, and that is when they become like a horrible human being. But one of the things that I do because I work with Black women is I often say, well, if you're going to ask other people to sit in their discomfort, can you sit in yours? I mean, once again, trying to manage somebody else. I'm not saying telling somebody not to sit in their discomfort is a bad thing. I'm saying, can you sit in yours? Were you avoiding your own ish by always trying to manage somebody else, right? And so they're going to lose comfort because you're not managing their comfort anymore. And that's going to register as a loss. It's going to register with them as a loss of a version of you who made everything easier for them. And who doesn't wanna be around a person who's always putting me first, right? Like, what are you talking about? We hang out together, we are family members, we are in this church space, and every time I encounter you, I feel amazing because you prioritize me, and now you're not doing that. So, someone who benefited from the fact that you were showing up disintegrated and wounded can call that an attitude. They can say that you feeling kinda distant now. They could say that you acting different and showing up funny and that you change. And a lot of times for Black women, they say that we are angry and we are hostile and we are mean because the expectation is that we are going to show up in service to them, especially us. And when we don't show up in service to them, it is an assault to something on the inside. Some people know it consciously, some people don't know it consciously, but we all encounter it. And so what they are reacting to is the recent absence of your self-abandonment. You are no longer abandoning yourself anymore, and it is jarring to them because the expectation is for you to abandon self when we are in relationship. I wrote down a few ways how this actually shows up. And this is from my lived experience as well as working with hundreds of Black women as their coach. First, You stop managing other people's emotions. This is hard because, as I pointed out, it is very easy to distract yourself from your own internal noise by taking on the labor of other people. But I offer to you that if you have a tendency to be Captain Save by you know what and fix a you know what and a people pleaser, why are you distracting yourself from your own stuff? The most powerful year that I had, that's not true. Last year was a hoot. Let me go back. I was gonna say the most powerful year that I had is when I chose the word mastery for my word of the year, as in self-mastery, as in God told me to worry about myself. It was a powerful year because it showed me how much I was focused on other people's stuff. And this was pre-pandemic, so this was 6, 7 years ago. The reason why I stopped in my boots is because 2025, my word of the year was audacity, and when I tell you I had a time to the point that I don't know, I picked the new word of the year this year, but I don't know if I'm ready to let go of audacity. I actually told a friend that I was switching my word, and she said to me, "No, no, no, I'm not done with audacious Rushni." So who knows? I might have to run audacity back, but let me go. The second most powerful word was mastery because I was no longer distracting myself with a bunch of other people's stuff. You don't cushion your words as much. When you are wounded, you are tiptoeing, often in spaces that encourage this tiptoeing with your words because you know there's a quote unquote right and wrong way to say it. You've probably been trained to silence yourself or to cut off pieces of what you authentically think. You're around people who tell you can't say it that way. You got to say it that way. You can't say it this way. You can't say, let me tell you something. I am turning 50 this year. We are in the year of 50, you guys. When I tell you I don't give a fuck anymore, I don't care. Okay. You don't apologize when you have a need. A lot of us are taught to not need anything. We don't even recognize we have a need because we have been taught from such a young age to swallow it, right? It shows up because you don't spend an exorbitant amount of time explaining yourself or communicating something, a need, a boundary, etc. I think there's a video of me on YouTube, maybe 12, 13, 14 years ago. It was before Zion, and Zion will be 14 this year. So let's go with 15 years or more. That is called Don't Explain Yourself. At least it used to be called Don't Explain Yourself. This was when I started realizing that that blathering on where you spend minutes and minutes explaining is because you think this person has power over you. You stop doing that, right? You realize that when you have an internal compass of self-love, that you are okay and you don't have to explain anything to anybody unless they actually like you're at work or something. But if the person is just a peer, you stop explaining yourself. Especially for Black women, this can feel really jarring when people encounter this because we are taught to be so agreeable, gracious, but then like emotionally fluent and tiptoeing around other people so that we are not labeled a thing all at once. And that is a lot to have to process. So when we stop doing all that extra labor and we just say what we think and move on with our day, people can feel that immediately and they will say that you are mean now. They will say that you are mean. Also, let me say this to you guys. A wounded version of you picked these people. So if you switch up who you are becoming and start showing up in the transition spaces as a different version of you. If a wounded version of you picked the relationship with this specific person, there is nothing to guarantee that that person is going to be able to handle a healed version of you. But why would you expect them to? If a healthy version of you picks broccoli and you open your refrigerator and it's a stack of whatever unhealthy food, cookies and cakes and pies, an unhealthy version of you picked them. They are the cookies and the cakes and the pies. So of course they're going to be like, come back here and, do this unhealed, wounded thing with me, right? The second thing that happens is you your tolerance for unhealed stuff starts to drop. You notice yourself getting irritated with things faster, and this happens because you are no longer dissociating for their comfort or yours, right? Things that used to slide for some reason that you didn't used to notice that you thought were normal, they hit now. They register. Your eyes start darting back and forth. "The hell was that?" And this is a phase where you could feel really mean to people because you become aware of how much you were in unhealthy spaces, hearing, encountering, and participating in things that don't feel right anymore. Let me tell y'all a story. When I was pregnant, I blamed it on the hormones. There were 2 people in my life on a regular basis that I avoided while I was pregnant because even though I had feedback from other people that there were times where they would have negative enough negative encounters with people that I had gotten feedback consistently on both of these people, I was able to be around them and just I used to call it grace back then, okay? Now I look back and I'm like, it was learned dissociation, but whatever. When I became pregnant, man, that learned dissociation that I was calling grace did not hold up, and I could not be around these people. The way my eyes were rolling straight out of my head. The irony is neither of these people are as prominent in my life right now as they used to be, because the more I heal, the more I realize I don't have tolerance for for the foolishness. I don't. The reason why I was getting feedback from so many people about how reckless you were in your life is because 'cause you're reckless, and I don't have the tolerance for it. Now, do those people consider me to be mean? I've gotten distant. I've gotten that. But there's a reason you think I'm distant, because I'm distant. I don't wanna be around it. Damn it. 3rd, it shows up as you stop volunteering for things you never volunteered for. That people just made you or that you just became to feel safe and survive. You stop trying to fix everybody and yourself. You stop trying to translate between people, running around trying to translate this person's foolishness to this person's half foolishness and somehow you take that on. You just let that be. You stop trying to be the one that keeps the group together. Let me tell you something. I had a friend group back in the day. And the amount of labor I didn't even realize I was doing it, to keep us together. And I was very joyous in it, but I look back and it was an unhealthy amount because when there was infighting in the group, not with me, but other people, and eventually I was going through my own life stuff, like, a kid with special needs and all of the other things going on in my life. I just decided to let it rest and see what happened. And when I tell you that thing sputtered to a stop, and it's just not the same as it used to be. Now, there are a lot of other factors. It's not just because I let it fall. And I was not the only person trying to be the glue to hold something together. But it does make me see how much labor I did to almost unnaturally keep a group together that naturally wanted to dissipate. You don't do it anymore. And one of the people in that group recently, like a year or 2 ago, said something to me that was just so unhealed, and I was like, "How in the world was I even" like, you just are like, "What planet was I on that I thought that you were a person in my life? What's going on?" Okay. And a lot of Black women experience this as saying, "I'm tired of being the strong one. I'm tired of being the strong friend. Everybody thinks I'm the strong friend." Do you know how many times I hear that? I hear that so much. But what they don't realize is that healing often starts with withdrawing your emotional labor. Instead of looking at it from like a, "I'm tired of being the strong friend," ask yourself why you were showing up that much for people who were unequally yoked. And if you have to force a thing to be a thing, was it a thing in the first place or are you just what's happening? Find the people who are willing participants in a thing and stop volunteering for roles that you didn't apply for and that you do not need to do the labor for. When you stop doing that, though, people will notice. And some people will resent you and call you mean. When I stopped doing the thing that I was doing to try to hold groups of people together, I had lots of passive communications of like, "Oh, Reshni will do this. Well, let Reshni do this. Well, no." And it's never been the same. Now, you know, there's more I could say on that, but that's what happens. The fourth thing I want to point out is you can become interested, you become less interested in being understood and more interested in being authentic. Let me see if I have it. There's a screenshot somewhere on my where do I have it? Here it is. I screenshot this. It's on my desktop. March 13th, 2021, 9:58 p.m. The moment I stopped spending any time on anyone telling me my experience isn't valid. So what's that? We're at 5 years in almost. As a person who creates content on the internet, you have a lot of opportunity for people to give you feedback this way because you're putting yourself out that way. And so you can encounter a lot of that messaging in your real life and not in your real life. And I just decided I'm going to be Rushni and go on with my day. And that is something that didn't happen at a moment. It's something that I am implementing the more and more I can, almost like a flower blooming or like that's what it feels like. And so I have become, and you can become less interested in being understood because running around trying to be understood by everyone often means you will be betraying yourself. You're so busy of the applause and praise of somebody outside of you that you aren't looking for the applause and praise of the person inside of you. It can show up as you stopping arguing your reality with people. I do not argue my reality with people. I don't. I'm not saying I'm always right. I'm saying my experience exists. That's why the thing I said was people who anyone telling me my experience isn't valid. My experience is valid. So you stop. You choose to not chase validation or closure the way you used to. Let me tell you something about closure as I'm breathing on 50's neck. I'm wrapping up these 40's. You got to get comfortable with not getting closure and moving the hell on. If you listen, I could make a whole video about that. Probably should. If it's one thing you learn from me, especially if you're younger than me, you don't need to have closure and you don't need to have validation. Move on. And this stuff starts happening because you start healing, you start understanding yourself, you start realizing that you can be safe without the external validation, etc., information, whatever, as somebody else. You start to learn how to stand alone as your internal self. Healing is a return to self. It's a return to the divine you that God created you to be. So you realize that only in unhealthy spaces did you need all of that contorting to be understood and begging people to understand you and needing everybody to validate your experience before you consider it valid on the inside. You're not taking it from the outside anymore. You're coming in, you're living inside out and not outside in. And let me tell you what, when you start doing that, people who have an expectation for you to be externalized and them to be externalized can consider you to be mean. And fifth, your energy can become so much more selective. You don't spend a bunch of time around people who are energy vampires. You start to recognize who is an energy vampire and you diminish or entirely cut off your experiences with them. You don't explain yourself to people. There are people who I just don't spend time around anymore. I don't want it. I don't want too old for that. Okay. You don't dramatize your exits. You just leave. You don't do a bunch of explaining. I used to see people talking about how ghosting was bad, and I do think ghosting can be negative in some spaces, but I also think ghosting is quite positive in some spaces. If what you're talking about is a person who doesn't dramatize their exit, they just remove themselves from unsafe spaces. You don't spend a bunch of time arguing your boundaries and your needs. You maintain boundaries with precision and you fulfill needs. And when somebody comes in and tries to tell you not to be that way because it makes them, for some reason, uncomfortable, I don't know why, you don't spend a bunch of time going back and forth on it, you know, with them. You just say your piece or you choose not to say your piece because sometimes you don't have to say anything and you make a different choice and you move on with your day. And let me tell you what, people who benefited from you over functioning, from you being a fixer, from you showing up and taking on their emotional labor. People who benefited from you being a people pleaser, always prioritizing them, having no boundaries, always saying yes, never saying no, always self sacrificing, crushing yourself into pieces, showing up broken and not whole. They can often feel when you start showing up this way that you are mean. They think you're mean, but your body is going to experience this as relief, like truth, like wholeness, like maturing, like healing, like a homecoming. So, yes, healing can make you appear mean to some people, typically unhealed people. And sis, good for you. Congratulations. Okay. It's a sign. If this happens to you, I want to encourage you to keep going because it's a sign that you're no longer available for chaos. You're no longer available for pressure. You're no longer available for invalidation. You're not operating from a place of shame and self abandonment, right? It shows that you are maturing. It shows that you are secure or becoming more secure. It shows that you are developing self-respect and standards, and it becomes a internal stillness and a peace that you carry around with yourself, which is the ultimate homecoming. Amen, amen. Thanks for showing up. The next cohort of my Create Your Life virtual planning retreat starts June 5th. The wait list is open right now, and I will be hopefully opening up enrollment today. If you join the wait list, you can get a coupon code when enrollment opens. So visit bit.ly/virtual planning retreat. And don't forget, December ladies, we are kicking off co working this Sunday. And then our first accountability call is January 18th. You have gotten a separate email. If any of this landed for you in the comments, especially if you watch on the replay, let me know if you have ever been accused of being mean or distant or you change, etc., on your healing journey. And if any of what I said resonated with you. And be well, you guys. Be encouraged and happy new year again. Hopefully, I am back to my weekly flow of live videos. Um, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky. As you guys can see, I'm in a separate location. I have two locations now. I'm in a second location. Um, actually, this is the first location. The other place is the second location now. And so it just becomes a little tricky, but I'm going to see if I can keep this 1 o'clock on Friday time. I used to be 12:30. I think I'm gonna try to keep 1. All right. Be well, you guys. Be encouraged. Keep creating. Here's a pineapple. Bye.